Namaste. Welcome. It's a blessing to be here with you again today. The practices today will focus on what we will call the royal seat. The journey of meditation, it takes us to our highest self. So for us to look at our seat as something quite royal and of worthiness. And so when we begin to approach the Dharma, and Dharma has several different interpretations. It can be translated as one's personal potential and purpose. But in the Buddhist tradition, Dharma means the teachings of Buddha. And in the teachings of Buddha, they highly encourage that we approach the teachings first by hearing them, so by listening. And then second, through contemplation. So we contemplate the teachings. And third, we meditate on the teachings. So we actually practice the teachings. And my very dear Buddhist teacher, Khenchen Tranggu Rinpoche, he shared that we could actually sum all of Buddha's teachings into 3 primary teachings. And I personally love this, as the Buddhist tradition has many, many, many teachings. So to sum them all up, the first is that we do our best to perform right action. So we do good things. The second is to avoid bad action. So to avoid bad things. And the third is to tame the mind. And so here we are. I think many of us come to meditation to help relax the mind, to help calm the mind. And one of the main influences on our mind is our seat, the actual seat that we take. So we have parts of the mind often referred to as the ego, and parts of the mind will avoid the discomfort or the achiness that's involved by facing our inner obstacles, by moving through our inner landscape, and that requires a great deal of challenge and through that discomfort. So parts of the mind will do whatever it can to avoid that sensation. And one way it will avoid it is through physical discomfort, through the sensations in the body. So our seat playing a role in relaxing the mind, our seat playing a role in actually focusing our concentration. You know, otherwise, if we can't relax the mind, if we can't focus our concentration, the teachings tell us that the kleshas rise, that fluctuations of the mind take over. According to Patanjali Yoga Sutras, there are 5 main kleshas. They are egoism, attachment, aversion, ignorance meaning a lack of knowledge, and fear. And so these tend to rise when we have an erratic mind. So when we can allow the seat in and of itself to be comfortable, then we begin to stabilize the mind and we begin to relax and calm the mind. So today I would like to start by just focusing on developing a comfortable seat and just share all the different options for you. And often it depends on where you are physically, emotionally, psychologically, and it can change by the day. So I highly encourage you to be flexible in your seat and to change it up if need be. So I'm going to start by just going through some of the props, because the key is to have lots of props to support your comfort. So today I'm just putting 2 blocks together, as this supports the openness in my personal hips. So when it comes to comfort, we want to focus on the ankle joints, the knee joints, and the low back. And so these all need lots of space to be comfortable. And one of the keys to creating space in all of three of these places is by elevating the pelvis. So I elevate it on these blocks. If you have any rectangle blocks, you can also add some comfort here and elevation here. And if you have pillows or bolsters, they're also a good way to sit. The first way I'm going to show you to sit is what I call the straddle seat, and this is one of my favorites. And I elevate the pelvis. I'm sitting on the edge of a bolster. You can sit on the edge of blocks or pillows. And here I just tend to give a lot more space to my ankles and my knees when I'm sitting for an extended period of time. And you can also create a cross-legged seat. And so the cross-legged seat, you can sit in your cross-legged seat in a couple different ways. And Sukhasana is one of the kind of baseline cross-legged seats. And this is when your shins cross in the middle of one another and your feet themselves work more under the knees. And it's good to keep your feet slightly active if you're working with any knee issues. So if you press through the outer edge of the pinky toe of your foot, it helps kind of lift the shin and from there support the knees. So the other thing I wanted to highlight in a cross-legged seat is that you can use blankets. The blankets tend to, especially if you're nursing any knee issues. So I'm just going to show you a really comfortable way to support and give yourself that extra coziness. Is I rolled up a blanket and I kind of wrap it underneath my femur bone, underneath my shin, and underneath the ankle. So that the femur bone and the shin and the ankle are all resting on top of the blanket. And so if you have two of them, it even makes it more juicy, more comfortable. Anything to tame the mind. So once as you roll up the blanket, do your best to put them underneath the ankle, the shin, and the outer thigh. And now I'm in a cross-legged seat, what I would call Siddhasana. And this requires a little bit more opening in the hip joint. And it's just more of an open seat. For some of you, it might feel very good. The ankles are in line with each other, and then the ankle joints are in line with the pubic bone. Okay? So this is another way to create that supportive, stable seat. And so from there, it kind of gives you an advantage point to support the mind so it doesn't get so distracted by the physical discomfort of sitting. Okay, so the other option I wanted to mention, two other options. For those of you that are feeling very fatigued or you're very have uncomfortableness in the back body, for example, lying down is also an option for you during the meditation practices. However, I do want to highlight that we have these ascending and descending currents that rise up and down the subtle architecture of your body. So the subtle body, up and down the spine. And a lot of the ancient scriptures, a lot of the meditation lineages talk about how the vertical position plays a significant role in our awareness expanding. However, if we're not feeling supportive enough in a vertical seat, if we don't have the vitality or the prana and it feels better to lie down, then I highly encourage you to just lie down. But when you're lying down, create a couple different extra comforts for yourself. So if you have a blanket, you can place your skull on it. It may tend to help keep the natural curve of the neck. And then if you have blankets or pillows, you can also place them underneath your knees. Okay? So then when you're coming to lie down, I often invite the pelvis to lift. You just give a little scoop to the tailbone, then lower the pelvis down. And then when you come all the way down, do your best to tuck one shoulder blade under and then the next. So the front body is being held by the back body. And from here, you can move your body into a relaxed state, relaxed, comfortable state. And if you're feeling a little on the cold side, it may be good to cover yourself with any kind of shawl or blanket in the meditation practice. Now, for those of you that are nursing low back, hip discomfort, sitting in a chair may be the best option for you. If you're sitting in a chair during your meditation, which is always a beautiful option for many of us, I just highly encourage you to take your pelvis more toward the edge of the chair so that all four corners of the feet can be rooted onto the ground and you can maintain a more tall spine. So wherever you are, I invite you to find a seat that's very comfortable for you. So once you find your seat, I'm going to invite you to imagine that your seat is like an altar. An altar is known to be this living essence. It's known to have a very reciprocal relationship with whoever feeds it. So an altar holds prana, it holds intention, it holds prayer, it holds remembrance, it holds power. And then whatever you offer over to an altar, it accumulates this grace, it accumulates these energetic offerings. And then in return, it is known to give over its power and grace to you. So you feed the altar with this acknowledgement and remembrance that the altar also feeds you. So it's a symbiotic relationship we have with an altar. Some of these very ancient teachings in regards to ritualistic practices say that it's very important that we keep our altar very clean and organized. And therefore, when we do keep our altar clean and organized, it begins to feed you all kinds of prana and vitality. So if we take that teaching and begin to imagine that our seat is an altar, that we want to treat the altar in a very sacred way, treat your seat like it is an auspicious essence. So ideally, if you can choose a place in your environment to meditate, choose a place in your home that is going to be the same place you come to every day, ideally. And it holds your practices. All of the workings, all of the tools, all of the learning, all of the wisdom, all of the prayers that you make during your meditation practices are held in the seat. So every time you come to the seat, it's feeding you an accumulation of vital energy. So with this acknowledgement that your seat is this sacred altar, a couple more things in regards to your seat. So we want to be able to sit so that the center of the skull is over the center of the heart. And the center of the heart is over the center of the pelvis. These are three really sacred, powerful, energetic doorways and center points. So when you stack them, there are channels that are opened for you. So I'll invite us to start with the hands facing down, palms facing down onto your thighs. And ever so gently, just allow your side bodies to get really long. Okay, so we're going to invite the area between the hips and the armpits to lengthen. And one way to do that is on the next few cycles of breath, just allow your ribs to take in the breath, to take in the air, and allow your breath to fill up your torso all the way to the collarbones. So the rib cage in and of itself is literally ascending. And then on the exhale, we place the shoulder heads more toward your back body. And then as you breathe out, you just let the shoulders soften and relax. And then, you know, as my teacher, my Buddhist teacher shared with me, we take our gaze very softly. And this is part of setting up our seat. So we have the side body long and the shoulders to your back body. And the gaze is super tender, and it's about 4 finger widths in front of the nose. And you keep your gaze really quiet and soft. And from that quiet, soft gaze in front of the nostrils, there will be a calling to invite the eyelids to close. And the jawline is very relaxed. It's has this cascading, this release. And one way to remind yourself to let the jawline relax is to slightly separate the teeth, the upper jaw from the lower jaw. And then I'm going to invite you to place the very tip of your tongue in the upper palate where the gums meet the teeth. Inviting the back of your tongue to get real weighty. And the lips, they just gently embrace. And then place your awareness in the throat. And to begin with, the throat opens. And as the throat opens, there's a natural curve in the neck, allowing there to be a pathway of energy moving from the skull to the heart and from the heart to the skull. And then from there, in the upper palate, top of throat, this part of your spine and throat and skull, it moves slightly in and back. And from here, to really root your royal seat, bring your awareness to the pubic bone, so this frontal pelvic bone, and ever so micro, so it's a very small movement. You descend the pubic bone toward the earth. Notice what that brings into the low back. And then from there, allow attention to move to the 2 sit bones. And invite the weight of the pelvis to literally wash down into the 2 sit bones. So now your tailbone is moving very gently toward the pubic bone. So it's this dance between the pubic bone and the tailbone as they move toward one another. And when you find that balance between the pubic bone and the tailbone, there is often an opening and a rising through the pelvic floor up into the heart center. So as my dear teacher Kenshin Trongu reminds us, is that to tame the mind, it's very important that we do our very best to embrace the present moment. More often than not, we are in the past or we are in the future. It's important we give our mind a place to be, to focus on. And the past has already happened. I did, she did, we went, I said, this happened. And we don't necessarily want to chase the future. We could endlessly plan our future. I will, this should happen. So we ideally want to be in this moment right now. The present moment is a shorter period of time, so there are less thoughts moving and streaming through your inner mind, your inner screen. So when you're in the present moment, not only are there less thoughts, but often we are able to cease all thoughts. So I invite you to literally turn your attention upon itself and just notice what is. Notice your capacity to witness this gift, this astonishing power to observe. And notice that you are observing. And we'll just rest in your own awareness. And in a very tender way, just begin to increase the weight of your breath. And drinking your breath to be a bit fuller as you breathe in from the nostrils down into the heart, down into your lungs. See if you can even draw the breath down into your pelvis. And as you exhale, just let the back body relax a little more. And 2 more full breaths. Cleansing breaths. Breathing down into pelvis and legs. And very gently, when you're ready, allow the eyes to float open. So I encourage you to take a few moments to journal what you were experiencing in your practice, what you were feeling in the body, what were you feeling in the heart and the mind, and take a few moments to actually contemplate and express how these practices felt for you, to just be in your royal seat, to set up a comfortable seat so that you can allow your highest self to rise and really allow the universal love within you to rise up by setting up these very little subtle refinements. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you very soon.